basically Catchup. Basically, uh, this week I probably won't showcase any code a lot. If any of you, which I don't think many did, but if any of you watched the replay of the live stream, it was kind of uneventful, mainly because there's a lot more thinking than there was action. Um, I am working on the hardest component to convert. Most of the components that are out there in the library right now are really quite simple, usually one or two components at most. But the one I'm converting, and I took it on for that very reason, is the date time component. And it's got, I think, 7 or 8 components in it. So I have to think logically about where the headless components come in, how they're going to interact with the other components, what we need. This is one of the few components that actually will have to pass data between the components. So we're going to actually get to flush out the whole concept of the parent-child data passing between headless components. So it's not really something that happens, in a couple of hours. This is something that takes time to think through and all that. Anyways, other reason why there wasn't as much progress is because we've been quite busy. I've had 2 people come on this week alone into the open source project. And I made an announcement this week about something that had been on my radar for quite some time. This wasn't something that I just said, hey, let's try it. I'd actually had this idea 6 or 7 years ago, probably. It was shortly after I moved here to Australia. The idea popped in my head. It was just one of those things. And the problem is, you don't write your own JavaScript framework by doing it on your own. That would take an absolute eternity. But since we're getting more people who want to participate in the open source projects, since people want to learn things, want to do things, and all that kind of stuff, I think this is the time to maybe pull the trigger on it. Have the possibility of actually creating our own JavaScript framework. I don't want to give away too much. There are a lot of ideas that are sitting up in here about where we're going to go with this. I don't want this to be just a React clone that you're going to throw away just like anything else. I'd like this to be something that you know makes things as easy as possible to develop front end applications. Doesn't overcrowd the framework with things that may or may not be needed. Um, but that's going to take a lot of thought. Doing that kind of idea, doing that kind of thing, is going to take a lot of thought. And I've already created a space for it in Jira. I've opened up a Confluence site for it. I've even created a Jira project for it. That was even before I announced it. I had already started doing that because it was just something that was rolling around up in there. And so I'm going to go ahead and say it here because I'm hoping by the time that this thing goes live that I've already got the name solidified. I've solidified it just about everywhere else. I've only got one more place, and that's npm. And so I'm hoping by late Saturday, I've got this thing registered on npm, and I'm not too concerned about giving the name. I'm going to call it Magma.js. There is a purpose behind that name. If anyone wants to know, you'll have to ask me. It'll give you something to do, give you something to listen to for this, and something to ask me. There is a reason for a name about that, and it's not Dr. Evil like one might think. Liquid hot magma. Although that will be something fun to say. anyways, yeah, there is a purpose behind the name. I doubt anyone would guess it. It came from a series of articles that actually my wife read back a number of years ago, that I really liked. I thought were really, really interesting. I don't want to say because if I say it, it'll probably give it all away and give away where the names come from, or where the name comes from. Anyways, yeah. Ask me about it if you want to know. Ask me where the name came from. But I'm hoping that this thing is going to start end of this year, early next year would be my goal. I don't know how many people we're going to bring on by then, but I'm going to start asking people when they come on, do they want to work on the open source component, the third party component library, or do they want to be maybe a little bit more research focused? Because some of the first stuff we have to do, of course, is start doing a lot of research into a lot of things, what current libraries do. For those of you that don't know, there is a web component standard out there that's available in all browsers. Technically, you don't have to use something like React and Angular or any of those things if you want to. You can quite literally write your own JavaScript and you can package it up into a library and register it with I believe it's in the DOM. I believe it's one of the DOM, one of the window events or something. I'd have to go back to some of my saved some of my bookmark locations there, some of the websites I bookmarked, and they have some information on how that can be done. So technically, you can write your own components from scratch, and you really don't need to have all of the framework tooling and all that. Um, that's for probably more simpler situations, though. The reason the reason a lot of tooling exists is to do things like navigation and all that kind of stuff, which is what we're going to have to dig into. That's the history API for anyone that's wondering. Um, that's basically actually the advancements to the history API is what made what do they call them, spas available. I remember when I saw the first one, I thought, "Well, what is this? That's silly. Why would you want to do that?" And then you start to realize, oh, you go to a different page, and you never have to post back to the server to get the data for the page. It's already preloaded. And that's where some of this that's where that whole thing kicked off. So the upgrades to the history API in most of the browsers kicked off what we now have in all these frameworks, how we have routers that go to different pages and all of the different stuff in all of these different libraries that we work on. So, that's one of the things we got to research is, where the current history API is, what features it has, what we need to think about in, building what we need to have in a core library versus what we need to have in library extensions like routing and things like that. I'd like to keep the library slim and mean. I don't want to make this big, huge monolithic library that is hundreds of k, maybe a meg and download side or something crazy like that. I'd like to keep this very small, very concise, what you need, and then add-ons from there. I've seen some libraries that have done that, and I think I like that concept. I like the concept of give someone exactly the minimum they need, and let them go ahead and do um, plugins to add more, and allow them to bring in other pieces that can do the job for them. I think we would provide some of those, but people could write their own as well if they wish, which would be nice to do. Anyways, um, there's that. There's all the things that have been going on. I don't think this is going to be a very long post today, a very long live stream today. But yeah, basically, if you guys want to, if anyone wants to join, I think now would be the time to do so. I'd like to see some people who really want to dig in deep and want to learn, because the framework is going to be a lot about learning, a lot about in-depth learning. It's not going to be learning React. It's going to be learning the underpinnings of browser technology. I've got a lot of sites that I've saved, and I've actually been building up a list of bookmarks that I've been saving for years now, just so I can get back to this. Web APIs to link to use to do certain things. Um, you know, things that are in the JavaScript language itself that can be utilized. Concepts. What are we going to do about having markup? There's the Angular way of doing markup. There's the JSX way of doing markup. I really don't want to bring in JSX. Um, Mainly because then that ties us back to React. What's the point? If you're going to use JSX, you might as well just use React, right? But what do you do? What do you do to provide markup and do things like possibly like a handlebars kind of thing, where you've got handlebars that processes tags in the actual markup to put in data and things of that nature. And how does all that work? And how do you pass properties from here and there, and how, what kind of features get built in? Will there be context? Will there be this? Will there be that? All of those things come into play, and that's a lot of work to do. Just saying it out loud is a lot of work to do, and it sounds like a lot of fun. For me, this is what I like to do. I love to dig deep. I don't use a library. There's probably not a library in my third party component library that I haven't actually gone into the code myself and dug in deep and learned what's there. And I'm telling you right now, for those of you who want to become, you know, really good software devs, that sort of needs to be the way you look at things. Dig in deep, learn everything you can, and do the best you can. Do the best you can. Learn the best you can. Be good at it. So, not a very long one. Not a very long one this week. But hit me up on X. Hit me up anywhere, anywhere I'm at. All this will be broadcast across all my channels. Whatever channel you're looking at, follow me, message me, do whatever, anything you want, anything you're interested in finding out about this. Hit me up and ask, and we can connect through whatever and figure things out.